Hey guys, welcome to Film Learnin, the show dedicated to learning you some filmmaking and learning you good. And yes, the day that we've been waiting for weeks and weeks is finally here. The Marvel template episode. I'm not even going to bother putting any requests up on screen because this thing has been talked about endlessly. Hope that's okay.
My God.
Anyway, actually it's pretty good timing because the new Avengers Infinity War trailer just dropped and it was amazeballs, so good timing for me. Totally on purpose.
That's not true!
Now guys, pre-warning, this thing is a monster. It's a monster to download, it's a monster to render, and it also has quite a bit of steps to get to the final product. But I have done my best to make it as easy as possible. So in order to complete this effect/template, you need to head to filmlearnin.com/downloads, scroll down the page a bit until you see the Marvel Studios logo, and download the pack. And you'll also need to download the fonts in the description. Now guys, since there are a lot of steps, I'm gonna shut my face hole and let's get to work.
Hey guys, here we are back in After Effects, and here's what our final shot looks like. So you can see there is a lot to unpack here, and I mean a lot. We have a 3D camera move dollying backward while each of our characters transition in. We also have text in 3D space, and you'll probably notice too that my version here has a lot more Marvel characters, and that's purely my own choice. I just wanted more of them in there. Then that transitions into 3D lettering that features multiple videos on the inside of the lettering here, and each edge of this R has a different video on it. Now we have done something similar to this with our Crisis X template, but in this instance it's not a front-on shot. We're actually tracking through it through all the bends and the curves, so we have to do this texturing 100% in Cinema 4D in 3D space. Now I'm gonna be upfront guys, this takes some time to do this right, but it isn't impossible, and I've done as best I can to make this as easy as possible. So let's start editing this and get this done. To start editing the first part, let's head to the project menu and open up the comp marked Part 1. This comp contains the entire 3D camera move from the comic pages all the way up to Cap's shield throw. And if we have a quick look down the timeline, you can see there are a lot of layers here, and that's just the characters. But here's the thing, if you want to say replace a character with a picture of your own, it's actually pretty easy. For example, if I don't want to say have Thor here anymore, I can simply open up the Thor pre-comp here, grab a picture of say Mr. Bean, and make sure our Thor picture is selected. We're then going to hold down the Alt key and drag our Mr. Bean on top of Thor. That's something I never thought I'd say. But as you can see, we haven't messed up any of the settings and we've changed the picture. Now you might have to tweak the replacement picture a little scale wise just to make sure it fills the frame. There we go. But if we head back to our Part 1 comp, you can see that now Mr. Bean is sitting where Thor once was. Now the same thing applies for the text. At the moment I have quotes from the various films that I was able to read in the actual Marvel logo animation, but if you want, you can totally just write your own. It's easy as just clicking on the text file and just writing it out. It's really that simple. Now we do have one last layer of customization, and that's the comic pages at the start. If we open up that pre-comp, you can see I have a movie file in here at the moment to save for render times. But if we head to the project window and open the comp marked comics, you'll see a bunch of animated layers of comic stills. Now if you want to add your own comic panels, just replace them using the same technique I just showed you with the Thor layer. Select the layer you want to replace, hold the Alt key and drop your replacement file on top of it and just adjust the scaling and the position to your liking. Or you can just leave this all alone because I've already done it for you and it took a long time. Up to you gang. Shall we move on to the 3D lettering? Yeah, let's do that. Let's select the Cinema 4D file marked Marvel Template, head up to Edit, and click Edit Original to open Cinema 4D. Okay, so here we are in Cinema 4D, but before we get into that, let's quickly play through what I've done here in a preview. As you can see, we start out inside the letter R, we track out of it, dolly back and pan out to reveal the rest of the Marvel logo. The studio text emerges from the lines here, the video fades out, and we finish with the entire Marvel Studios logo in shot. Nice. Now here's the deal. This is the final product, and it isn't editable in any way. In order to insert these videos into the letters, it requires us to select the polygons within the geometry of these letters, which means taking them from an editable text to a 3D object. So let's do that. our first step is to change the lettering if you like. To change the lettering in the Marvel part here, we have to start from a point where the text is editable. And luckily, this template does that. So if we head over to the object manager, you can see we have a cube, an extrude object, and our reference text, all within this one part. These are in what's called a bouillon, which is a fancy way of saying our 3D text is subtracted from the cube to form the logo. Now, why am I telling you that? Well, mainly just to make myself sound smart, because it's not really relevant. Now, what is relevant is that we can edit this text by clicking the text file and typing in whatever we want, well, within reason. So what I mean is, don't type a crazy long name in here, because you'll either have to shrink that text or expand the cube to fit it in. And by doing that, you'll throw off the camera animation and its placement in the scene. Now, I'll just quickly demonstrate this. I'll type, instead of Marvel, I'll put, I don't know, Dexter. Now you can see it updates and everything looks fine. But if I was to type, say, film, I'd have to shorten the cube, like so. Now if we move out of multi-view into front view, you can see that it looks weirdly spaced out now. So we need to bring both the studios and the logo in a bit to center them back up again. Now this is totally fine and you can do this, but it is going to throw off our camera animation quite a bit. Now if we head back to multi-view mode and back into perspective, let's check out that camera move. Now you can see now it's a bit off, we're no longer sweeping through a letter like we were and it just looks weird. Now to fix that, let's select the camera and head to the first keyframe here. Now we really want to get down so we can see that exact keyframe, so we'll use these parameters on either side just to zoom on in so we can just see that one single keyframe. Since this project has a lot of frames, there is a possibility that if you don't zoom in this far, you might just add another keyframe instead of editing the one we want to change. So that's why we're drilling down this far. Let's switch back to multi-view mode and adjust the camera with the position controls. Now guys, you could totally do this in perspective mode and just adjust it sort of first person wise, but I find you actually get a bit more precise if you use top down mode. That personally for me is just a preference. I think the rotation works a lot easier in here. Plus if you stay in multi-view mode like I am now, you can see it auto update in perspective mode as well. So you can actually see what the camera is seeing as you're adjusting it in this other screen. Now I think since I'm going from an R, which was a bit more complicated to pan through, to an I, I'm going to zoom it up a little bit further. Once we're done, we'll hit the keyframe button here to record our newly minted frame. Next, we're going to head to the next keyframe and adjust that. So we'll zoom out, using these controls again, just so we can see the damn thing, and there it is. And just make sure you're on that exact keyframe. Now if you see one of these frames that looks like it's not quite in the exact center and you can't get into the center of it, just grab the keyframe by highlighting it like so, and then just move it so it's actually got a little line in between it. That way it's actually on a frame point and not sort of a half frame point. Now I know that notion of a half frame point sounds a bit weird, but you can see it right there. It's not sitting right on the frame. And if you don't do that, you are going to create another frame when you hit that record keyframe button. Okay, now that I've said my piece on that, let's get back to the tutorial. Same again, adjust it all around and hit the keyframe button once you're happy. Now from there, we should be able to get to a point where we don't have to adjust the camera anymore, but feel free to adjust it if you need to. Now the same rules do apply. Head to the next keyframe in the camera animation, adjust that to your liking, and then hit the record keyframe button. Now hopefully you don't have to adjust every single keyframe, and you can just leave some alone. I mean, I'm not going to reach out to the computer and stop you, or am I? Now let's skip to the final keyframe here and adjust that position the same way. And hit that keyframe button. Now I highly recommend you spend a lot of time making sure this camera move is smooth, because adjusting it once all the videos and textures are in place is not fun at all. Now as you can see here, I'm just copying the top numbers right here, as that's where our camera is on the left to right scale, and I'm just going to head to that next keyframe and paste them in and hit apply, rather than adjust it. Because that way we get the camera in the exact spot we want. Now we have our camera animation all sorted. Now if you like, you can customize the studio's text by simply writing in new text here. But personally, I'm going to leave it since I really want to show you how to make this logo with the Marvel text, and I'm going to reset everything back to Marvel with a flash of white and a fart sound. Isn't learning fun? So our next step is to start texturing the edges of the lettering on our Marvel logo. And this is the bit that's going to be a pain in the butt, because there's a lot to cover. Now before you do anything, make sure you are 100% happy with your logo, because we're about to turn it into 3D geometry, and this makes it non-editable from this point forward. I highly recommend saving a copy before you start doing this. Okay, so let's do it. Select your extrude here, and let's click the button over here to make it editable. Boop! Okay, well, that was pretty painless, right? Sure, no biggie. So let's get into texturing this bastard. Let's make sure our text is selected, and then we'll pop into polygon mode right here. This will allow us to select certain parts of the letter. We'll then grab our select tool and make sure only select visible is checked. Let's then grab, say, this part right here. Hold down the shift key and try to grab it all. Move the camera around if you have to, and just make sure you get every part of it. Now don't worry, the camera will snap back into its animation cycle once you're done. Right, we've made our selection. Now let's go up to select menu right up here, and we're going to hit set selection. This is going to throw a little triangle icon over here that represents these polygons. Now think of it like a bookmark, and let's name this 1. We can then click off that, boop, and then we're going to move on to our next selection. How about here? Grab it all like so, head up, set the selection, and feel free to name this one as well. I'm just going to name it 2. Now I'm going to speed up this process because it's just repeating the same steps again and again and again, and just do this until you have all of your hero letter or the letter that your camera pans through all selected. Now this is a key thing too, guys. You don't have to set a selection for anything that doesn't show on camera, like your dog that keeps humping your other dog. Just ignore it because he has no balls anyway. My point is that you don't have to select anything and add a material to it if it's not being seen by the camera. So just ignore it. You can then follow up that hero letter by setting the selection on the rest of the letters. Now, just as I said before, only select the parts of that letter that are visible on camera. Now you may have to go up and down the timeline to see what parts are visible on camera at any given time, but just use your better judgment and say, I think that bit's showing on camera, I better set a selection for it. In the cases of the other letters, I'm not getting anywhere near as detailed, I'm just selecting a whole bunch of sites and then designating that selection and just naming it A, V, that sort of thing. We're not panning through these letters and we're not moving around them too much, so you're not going to notice that they're not multicolored. But if you do want to multicolor them, that's completely up to you. I'm not going to do it. Now, when you're done, it should look like this. A whole bunch of little triangles in a line. Aww. From there, let's add the material. Now guys, I have a bunch of materials with videos pre-rendered and ready to go. But if you want to make your own and add your own video in there, there's also a way that you can upload these videos to the materials without screwing up everything I have going on in here. So all you need to do is head to color up here, click on the texture panel, and you can add any image sequence you like. And just make sure it's an image sequence, because if you add a movie file, it's really going to chug. Now, just make sure that your video has a colored overlay. Now, for example, my Thor footage is colored blue. Once you've imported it, head to the animation tab and hit calculate. And bam, your custom video is now playing in the material. But let's get back on track and start adding the materials to the lettering. So here's how we do it. Let's drop a material on our lettering, done, and in the selection area down here, you can then drag and drop that set selection that we want the material to appear on, like so. Now if you don't like the placement of the material and you want to adjust it, head over here and click on texture mode, and you'll easily be able to adjust the position and the scale of the material using the adjusters above. Just make sure you're still in polygon mode, or this option will just not show up. As you can see, I'm farting around going, what's going on right now? So when this yellow grid pops up on screen, you know you're in the right mode. Now you can position and squeeze this bad boy down like I need to do. Ah, that's much better. Now feel free to spend as much time as you like getting these textures right, guys, because you need to move in and out of the timeline just to see how they look in a close-up, and you just don't want them to look bad. So spend the time and get them looking perfect. Now if you need to move the camera back or get a better look, once again guys, that's fine. You aren't going to ruin the animation by moving it. Right, that's one done. Next one, and the same idea applies gang. Drop the next material on, set the selection, and then adjust the material to suit your lettering. We'll keep doing this until every single selection has a material on it. The end result should look like this. Okay, so that's one letter down. Let's throw in another fart sound and do the rest. Ooh, that was quite the squeaker. Okay, we're almost done, believe it or not. The next thing we want to do is head up to the object manager and turn on this null object. Now these are actually plates that form the bottom of the letters. Each of these is animated to move up as the camera pans back from the Marvel logo, and then animate back down before the end of the logo animation to create some soft shadows in the text. Now you might not need all of these if you have less letters, or you might need more of them if you have more letters. Now just like with our materials, these are pretty easy to customize. Firstly, you want to make sure that they don't overlap with any of your text. To do that, let's head to the front view mode. If I cycle through these, you can see that each of them stays in the bounds of their represented letter. You can also see that they have animated frames below as well. The great thing is you can change the scale and even the polygons in these without messing up the set animation. So if the panel isn't the shape you want, you can scale it down or grab the knife tool and cut it to size. But if we want to move a panel from left to right to cover our newly custom lettering, that's a different story. Let's firstly head to that first animation keyframe right here. We'll then move over that letter and then hit the keyframe record button to keep it in place. We then have to copy this number right here and then paste that on each subsequent keyframe and hit that record button in order for the animation to update to that changed position. As you can see, this is pretty easy, but just like with this entire template, it does require some patience because you have to do this for every single letter. Now from there, we simply have to rinse and repeat this process for the other letters of course, move them into place, adjust the position keyframes, adjust the scale or shape, and then you're done. Feel free to turn off any of these letters that you don't use, or if you need more letters, just copy and paste the ones that we have here. Once you're done, you are quite literally done in cinema. Now this is very much worth repeating. Make sure you save your work as a different file name so you can always come back to the original if need be. And now let's head back to After Effects. Now back in After Effects again, and I'm going to ask you to do one thing right away. Grab that Cinema 4D file you just saved and import it into After Effects, and then once it loads, let's drag that into a new comp. From there, once it loads again, let's set the Cineware settings to standard final, and then we're going to hit Ctrl M and render this out. Now I'm personally going to recommend that you set it to QuickTime and the animation setting within the QuickTime settings. It's a great format and it'll keep your video nice and sharp. Once that's done, we're going to import that video file into the project window. Next step, let's also render out our part 1 animation because we really want our final render just to be easy to work with, and nothing's much easier than working with just 2 movie files. Same process, hit Ctrl M and export it as a QuickTime animation file. Once it's done, import it back into After Effects. From there, I want you to open up the comp marked Final. We can now replace both of the proxy files in here with your custom made files using our Alt Drag technique. 1 and 2. Believe it or not gang, that's it. If we check out a preview, our Marvel template is now done. God, that was a big one.
Add up all those steps and you get something like this. So guys, that's my take on the Marvel Studios logo for 2017-2018. I know it's a little bit different and not 100% screen accurate, but this thing was a monster to put together and has literally taken me weeks. So I'm sure you'll forgive me a few artistic licenses. Now guys, if you do use this template, be sure to send me a link on Twitter or the Facebook page and let me check out your work. But for now guys, that's all I've got for you. In the next few days we are going to hit 90,000 subscribers, which is mind-blowing. Thank you so much for that. And if you did like this particular video, please smash a like on it. I really do appreciate that. And hey, if you are new here, why not hit that subscribe button? And even if you are subscribed, make sure you turn that notification bell on so you don't miss a single Film Learnin episode. We've got 2 other episodes right over here. We've got a playlist right up here. And I've got my social media crap I just talked about right above my head. And until I see you for our 90,000 subscriber celebration video, keep learning.